The courtroom was quiet, until the truth burst like a bomb. It appeared to be just another day in the courthouse from the outside. But in the courtroom, something historic was going to take place in the world of sister wives. Kody Brown, formerly the self-assured matriarch of a large plural family, sat rigid in his seat, jaw clenched, his eyes scanning between the judge and the two women who had formerly been at his side. Christine and Janelle Brown, seated across from him, weren't here to simply win. They were here to rewrite the story eternally. The stakes couldn't have been higher. For years, viewers had witnessed this family's fissures widen into gorges. The melodrama, the changing allegiances, the heartache, all had unfolded before their eyes on television. But this was no longer reality TV. This was real life. And the judge hearing this volatile court battle wasn't concerned with scripted melodrama. Only the naked truth. The air was electric with tension. As Christine went first on the stand, she didn't hurry. She didn't falter. Rather, she gazed straight out in front of her, her voice steady but firm, as if she had been waiting years for this moment. Her words created a tragic picture, years of being invisible, dismissed, and underappreciated. Nights lying awake worrying that her children would never know the love of their father. She talked about shattered promises. Times when Kody's words of oneness were tainted by actions that pushed the family further away. You could sense the burden in the room change. All the people around you listening, from journalists to curious bystanders, were grasping every syllable. And then the gut blow. Christine laid out how her efforts to try to solve the issues were greeted with chill dismissal or outright fury. She wasn't just relating her half. She was revealing a pattern that had the room lean forward as one. Even some of those who had defended Kody in the past were silent now, their faces betraying shock and discomfort. Just as the air was settling, Janelle stood to give her turn. And if Christine's testimony was an emotional hurricane, Janelle's was a deliberate thunderstrike. She was armed, and the evidence she brought was not to be ignored. Stacks of paperwork, financial records, and even personal correspondence, neatly arrayed, created a damning picture of manipulation and favoritism. The room gasped when she revealed a key piece of evidence. A trail of financial moves made in secret, moves that had put her and her children in the back seat, while others appeared to reap the benefits. It wasn't only theatrics anymore, it was evidence. The judge's face tightened, obviously shaken by what he was learning. Kody, who had been sitting back with a nearly smug self-assurance, started to unravel. His arms crossed, his jaw locked harder, and in no time at all, his voice sliced through the tension. He accused Christine and Janelle of plotting against him, of manipulating the truth for their own purposes. But the judge wasn't convinced. In a scene that might have been ripped from a court drama, the judge leaned forward, interrupting Kody mid-sentence. "Brown, this is not this court's drama show. We are here for the facts, and the facts right now are not in your favor." The words fell with the force of a gavel blow. Kody's face grew red, his arguments weakening with each second ticked away. The more he insisted, the more the judge resisted. By the time for closing arguments, the verdict was obvious. Christine's words had awakened sympathy. Janelle's testimony had sealed the deal, and Kody's aggressive outbursts had done little but erode his claims. But the courtroom remained almost silent as the judge opened his mouth to speak. His ruling was clear, his tone stern. The court was ruling in favor of Christine and Janelle. Legal rights and monetary settlements were awarded to them, truly constituting a seismic shift in the sister wives drama. The response was instant. Christine's face crumpled into a tiny but victorious smile, her shoulders at last relaxing after decades of psychological tension. Janelle nodded, her serene expression giving away just the merest flicker of satisfaction. In the street outside, cameras burst into flashes and journalists fought to obtain their responses, while social media went wild with jubilation. The headlines struck within minutes. Judge destroys Kody Brown. Christine and Janelle score massive victory. For the fans, though, this wasn't just a victory in court. It was vindication. A moment they had been waiting for, watching come together piece by piece over the years. For Christine, it was finally having her truth acknowledged. For Janelle, it was fighting against choices that had pushed her to the sidelines for too long. And for Kody, it was a humbling, very public tumble from the power throne he'd held for decades. Exiting the courthouse, Kody never once looked up, keeping his mouth pressed into a thin line. No photographers, no smiles, no orations, silence. Christine and Janelle, on the other hand, walked out together, their relationship as strong as ever, not just bound together by the life they shared, but by the fight they had just fought together. The tale naturally doesn't end there. Court wins are only one page, and the after effects are guaranteed to be equally dramatic. But today, this was their day. A turning point, and the viewers sitting at home in front of the globe watched as they witnessed a game changer in reality TV's most buzzworthy family. The Sister Wives universe will never be the same again. The courthouse didn't appear to be the sort of venue where history would be made, merely another imposing beige government building standing solemnly in the face of the morning sky. But today, the walls within were going to bear witness to one of the most incendiary confrontations in Sister Wives history. It was still early, but the steps up to the doors were already packed. Reporters held their microphones close, photographers fiddled with their cameras, and curious bystanders leaned in expectantly. Fans who had been following the Brown family's every turn and curve waited wrapped up in coats that were hugged tightly around them, tilting their heads to get a glimpse of the individuals they had previously only ever encountered via TV screens. The air was cool, but the atmosphere was charged, a sort of tingling electricity that makes your skin tingle even before you're not sure why. Within, the fluorescent lighting cast anemic light over the glossy wooden benches. Each groan of the ancient wooden doors sounded especially loud, each rustle of papers off the floor. At the front of the room, the judge's podium towered up and unyielding, cloaked in authority. The court clerk hurried quickly, scanning her files, her face betraying that she knew that this was no run-of-the-mill hearing. Then, unceremoniously, the double doors swung open, and in strode Kody Brown. He didn't rush. His stride was slow, shoulders back as if to present confidence, perhaps even dominance. His hair was slicked back, suit pressed, and face wore that same combination of charm and stubbornness viewers had witnessed on countless episodes. But if you looked very closely, really close, you could discern the tension around his eyes, that fleeting flash of doubt as he surveyed the room. Whispers broke out, heads swiveled, cameras snapped, and then, all attention turned. Christine Brown came in, her back straight, her face impassive but her aura powerful. She was not here today as a cast member of a reality show. She was here as a woman who had something to contend for. The green blouse she wore was a vibrant contrast to the drab colors of the room, almost as if symbolic. Life and growth amidst a zone where hard facts and unyielding truths prevailed. Right on her heels was Janelle Brown, serene and unruffled as ever, but with an unmissable firmness to her gait. She was clutching a fat binder in one hand, the type that suggested months, perhaps years, of work. The two women didn't say anything to each other as they sat down, but there was a quiet understanding between them, a bond built in common history, and reinforced by what they were to go through in tandem. The room contracted as the three of them sat opposite each other, the chasm between them greater than mere physical distance. For more than a decade, they had been a part of the same unlikely family, bound together by oaths, offspring, and a television show. But today, the bonds were taut, strained to almost nothing. The bailiff called the court to order, his deep voice ringing out over the background chatter. All rise. The judge appeared, a man who reputedly did not suffer fools gladly, the type who did not brook drama or interruptions. His black robe creaked softly as he sat down, surveying the courtroom in a controlled manner. His eyes passed briefly over each party, as if assessing them mentally. Please sit down, he instructed, his tone flat but authoritative. The rustling of feet and papers ensued as all sat down. It was then that the gravity of the situation appeared to descend upon the room like a thick blanket. This wasn't a reunion special. This wasn't a scripted conversation for television viewing numbers. This was real, binding, indelible. The choices made today wouldn't merely impact headlines. They would redefine lives. Christine cast a fleeting look down at the gallery, seeing friends and strangers alike. There were some who were his supporters, while others were present simply out of curiosity. Janelle's gaze remained fixed on the judge, her hands cradled demurely in front of her on the table. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, leaning back to seem relaxed, but his foot tapping lightly against the floor, the only giveaway that revealed his tension. From the initial words uttered, this was obviously not going to be a hushed, swift hearing. The lawyers started off with opening arguments, adrenaline-fueled pleas for justice by each side setting the stage for hours, perhaps even days, of testimony cross-examining witnesses and presenting evidence. Christine's attorney went first, painting a picture of neglect, forsaken promises and behavior that had destroyed trust beyond retrieval. Each sentence was spoken with exactness, calculated to make the judge perceive the years of emotional hardship his client had experienced. When Janelle's lawyer stepped into the podium, the mood changed to one of figures, documents, and responsibility. This wasn't merely about relationships. This was about responsibility, about justice, about commitments made and broken. Then it was Kody's turn. His lawyer portrayed him as a victimized man, someone under attack from the intricacies of plural family life in the spotlight. He complained of media pressure, editing tricks, and how fame works on personal relationships. Kody nodded in agreement, sometimes looking over at the judge, maybe hoping to see some glimmer of understanding in his face. The judge's face, though, showed nothing. Occasionally the keys of the court reporter clicked quickly as she wrote out the streak of words into an official record. The thrum of the heating system and the sporadic cough of the gallery were the only other noises. Nevertheless, under all the technicalities and legalese, the emotional burden in the room could be felt. It wasn't merely a legal battle. It was the disintegration of a tale millions had observed over the course of years. And now, there was no director to scream out cut and restart the scene. There was no cutting room to temper the blows. As the morning progressed, you could sense the tension mounting. Witness lists were drawn up. Evidence binders were at the ready. Christine and Janelle stood ready to speak their truth. And Kody was getting ready to stand up for his side of things. Regardless of how the day turned out, one thing was already established among all who were in attendance. This courtroom was no longer merely a den of law. It was the ultimate chapter in a decade-long saga that had enthralled, polarized, and intrigued the public. And as the first witness stood ready to be sworn in, you could almost hear the shared thought in all of our heads. This is it. This is the day that everything changes. The bailiff called out once more, firm and official. Christine Brown. Step up. The voice of her name cut through the room's tension. Christine rose slowly, as if consciously ensuring each step towards the witness stand was significant. She didn't hurry, didn't look at Kody, didn't even nod at the murmurs from the gallery. Her eyes were fixed on the future, her face serene. But what she saw through those eyes was a different story altogether. The clerk walked up to her with the oath. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Christine's tone was firm. I do. She sat down, ironing out the wrinkles in her blouse, and adjusted the microphone a notch. There was a brief moment of silence. The rustling of papers ceased even. Everyone stared at her. Her attorney, a keen-eyed woman in a blue suit, moved in. Christine, can you explain to the court why we're here today? Christine breathed. Not the anxious one, but the one you breathe when you know the next sentences will alter everything. We're here because for years I felt invisible. I felt like my voice didn't matter. Like my children didn't matter. And I can't stay silent about that anymore. It was a simple statement, but the manner in which she made it caused the room to tilt forward. It wasn't wrath. It wasn't dramatics. It was truth. She started to discuss the early years in the family, how she had always believed in the vision Kody had painted. A family based on unity, respect, and love. She described holidays shared, late-night talks full of promises of the future, and believing that every wife and every child would be equally loved. But over time she said that dreams started to disintegrate. Christine's tone remained steady as she recounted how her role in the family appeared to shift, initially gradually, then suddenly. She shared instances where Kody would cancel plans with her kids but find time for others. Birthdays celebrated for some but ignored for others. Family decisions made without her consent. And then, the worst moment, seeing her kids realize. There's something you never forget, Christine softly said, her voice imbued with emotion. It's the look in your child's eyes when they see that they're not as important to their own father as someone else's children are. The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter hesitated half a second before continuing to type. Christine discussed how she attempted to speak to the problems. Peaceably initially, then more aggressively. She attempted private meetings with Kody in an effort to sort it out quietly. But she said, each attempt was met with excuses, defensiveness, or brush-offs. She was told she was too sensitive or reading things wrong. Her lawyer then asked, Christine, what was the effect on you personally? Christine dipped forward a little, gazing down at her hands before returning her eyes to the judge. It shattered me, piece by piece. When you're in a relationship for years feeling invisible, you begin to think you really are invisible. You begin to wonder if perhaps you're being too sensitive, perhaps you're the issue. But then I looked at my children, and I thought, if I don't make a stand, if I don't fight for them, then I'm showing them to settle for less than they deserve. The gallery was quiet, but the sentiment hung in the air thickly. Her attorney walked her through individual events. The Christmas party that had been canceled, the way she learned about a significant family decision from the TV production team, rather than Kody himself, the ever-changing set of priorities that somehow always placed her and her children last. One in particular punched her hard. Christine remembered one evening in winter when her daughter had practiced for weeks for a school show. On the night of the performance, she asked if her dad was coming, bubbling over with excitement. Christine had assured her yes, because that's what Kody had said. However, on the night, Kody failed to turn up. She later discovered that he'd gone out to another event for one of the other wives' children. She attempted a smile. Christine explained, her voice cracking only faintly. But I could see it. That pain doesn't subside. And in that moment, I realized, this isn't about me anymore. This is about my children being able to know their value. Christine's demeanor at this point was incredible. She did not scream. She did not sob. But each word was weighty, and you could see the people in the gallery wriggle with discomfort, the horror of her experiences becoming clear to them. Kody, across from his table, had his eyes turned forward most of the time, though he did steal glances at her occasionally with a tightly clenched jaw. His lawyer wrote furiously in notes. And Christine's attorney then posed the question that all present in the room had been waiting to hear. Christine, why now? Why bring all of this to court today? Christine responded instantly. Because silence hides the wrong people. I was silent for years believing it would maintain peace. But the peace was a fiction, it was constructed upon my silence. And I won't do that anymore. Not for me, and not for my children. Her words fell with the force of a gavel blow. Before her lawyer was done speaking, she turned to Christine and asked that she tell her what she needed from this case. Christine hadn't spoken of revenge or vengeance on Kody. She spoke of fairness, of accountability, of wanting her children to grow up knowing that they were worth showing up for. I'm not here to hurt anyone, she said firmly. I'm here to ensure my children and I are no longer treated as if we don't exist. As she eventually descended from the witness stand, the room fell silent in an almost spooky moment, not because no one was listening, but because everyone was, totally. And as she sat down in her chair next to her lawyer, the atmosphere in the courtroom had changed. Christine had done more than take the stand. She had drawn back the curtains on decades of unspoken suffering, and by doing so she had established the tone for all that was to come. The judge nodded curtly in the direction of the bailiff. Mrs. Janelle Brown, come up here. The click of her heels on the polished floor echoed louder than you'd expect in the hushed courtroom. Janelle wasn't one for dramatics. Everyone who'd watched her on Sister Wives knew that. But today she had an edge to her. She wasn't here to tell just a story. She was here to show one. Her fat binder, the one that she had clutched so tightly under her arm, lay open on the witness stand. Brightly colored tabs jutted out from the pages, each section a different category: bank statements, property records, messages. It was less a family album and more a war strategy. The clerk administered the oath to her. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Janelle didn't even blink. I do. She fussed with the microphone and leaned forward a little, her hands folded. Her lawyer, A lanky man with a measured voice moved to the front. Mrs. Brown, you've been with the Brown family for a long time. Can you explain to the court why you've decided to be here today? Janelle's eyes didn't blink. Because I've noticed patterns in this family that transcend feelings or arguments. This is about actions, choices, ones that had very real effects on me and my children. And I have the papers to back it up. You could almost sense the change in the atmosphere. Janelle started by explaining what her job in the family was, usually the one coordinating logistics, paying bills, keeping tabs on who owed what. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. And because she'd been the details person, she'd caught things others might have overlooked. Her first instance was presented with a tidy pile of printed bank statements, each page marked with careful yellow lines of highlighter. Those are withdrawals and transfers that occurred during a period of 18 months, she clarified, holding up one page so the judge could read. Every single one of them was from joint accounts, accounts that were to be used for common family expenses. But as you can see, she turned to a second page. Numerous of these transfers went straight into personal accounts owned by Mr. Brown alone, without my knowledge or approval. The judge leaned forward, scanning the pages. Kody's attorney objected, claiming the financial matters were misunderstood family arrangements, but the judge overruled him. I'll see the records, he said curtly, and that's when Janelle's strategy became clear. She wasn't relying on emotion to win this. She was building an iron wall of facts. Her second tab was labeled Communications. Printed out text message screenshots were arranged in sequence, each one time and date stamped. They reflected conversations between her and Kody, some decorous, some angry, in which she had demanded answers regarding big withdrawals, property sales, and investments that she hadn't been informed about until they had occurred. In one particularly telling exchange, Janelle had written, "This was supposed to be for the kids' college fund. Why was it used for something else?" Kody's reply, printed clearly for the court to see, read, "I needed to take care of something urgent. You'll understand later." Later, Janelle said flatly, never came. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Then came the records of properties. Janelle passed them over to her lawyer, who gave them to the judge. They revealed the sale of a piece of property the family had all invested in together. The proceeds, which were supposed to go to all parties, had gone instead to one account, again in Kody's name. When asked how she'd come to get these records, Janelle's response was straightforward. Public records. Anyone could have gotten them, but no one else took the trouble. I did. Kody was squirming now, his shoulders bracing. He whispered to his lawyer, who wrote something down, but his jaw was clenched. And then came the moment that really shook the room. Janelle pulled open the final section of her binder. In bold red letters, recordings. She said that over the past few years there were certain conversations that made her uncomfortable. She'd begun carrying a digital recorder on her phone, just to ensure she had an accurate record of what was said in off-the-record meetings. Her lawyer played a brief snippet for the judge. The sound was crackly at first, then Kody's unmistakable voice filled the courtroom. "You don't need to know every decision I make. If I think it's best for the family, I'll handle it, even if you don't agree." Christine remained quiet, but her mouth pursed into a thin line. The judge's brow knitted. In another clip, Kody's tone was more sharp. "If you can't trust me with the money, then maybe you don't belong in this family arrangement." Janelle didn't blink. That was when I knew the family arrangements he speaks of wasn't the one that Marty and I had agreed to way back when. It had evolved. And none of us had been offered an option. The seriousness of what she'd said lingered. Her evidence took more than an hour to give, each new fact piling up on top of the previous one until the image was unmistakable. This wasn't simply personality conflict or relationship failure. This was trust and an evident line of choices that had destroyed it entirely. By the time she finished speaking, the mood in the courtroom had changed once more. Christine's testimony had tugged at heartstrings. Janelle's had deposited hard, cold facts. Together they were a powerful combination. Kody's lawyer attempted to discredit her proof, assuring that the financial transactions were either temporary or misinterpreted. But the paper trail was explicit.
and the judge's expression revealed nothing but an occasional look at Janelle that seemed to imply he was being serious about her accusations. When Janelle left the stand, she didn't smile, didn't smirk. She just closed her binder, tucked it under her arm, and went back to sit beside Christine. The two women shared a fleeting, almost inaudible nod. The sort of wordless recognition that says, "We did what we came here to do." In the gallery, someone whispered, "That's it. He's done." And in that instant, it was as clear as crystal the case had turned. For the bulk of the morning, Kody Brown had kept a tight rein on his temper, or at least the semblance of it. He'd listened to Christine's tearful testimony with a clenched jaw and crossed arms. He'd braked through Janelle's painstakingly detailed fact-laden recitation with a strained immobility, leaning over only occasionally to whisper to his lawyer. But now, after hours of sitting and listening to charges heap up, the dam within him started to break. It began small. A nervous tapping of his pen against the table. A low growl under his breath when Janelle's attorney brought up the bank records once more. A swift shake of his head, as if he were attempting to shake physically the words lingering in the air. But when Christine's lawyer raised one especially destructive piece of evidence from Janelle, a property sale that had both women bypassed altogether, something in Kody snapped. "That's not what happened," he shouted abruptly, thrusting forward in his chair. His loud, nasal voice cut through the subdued courtroom like a whip. The judge's eyes swiveled toward him. "Mr. Brown, you will have a chance to answer when it is your turn to take the stand. For now, be silent while opposing counsel speaks." Kody sat back a bit, though the flush on his cheeks indicated he wasn't about to let this go. His lawyer rested a hand on his arm, a silent request to please behave. But Kody's gaze was pinned to Christine like spotlights.
By the time his lawyer got up to cross-examine, Kody appeared to interpret this as his signal to unload. "Christine?" he started, voice thick with exasperation. "You've manipulated things for years. You leave the family, leave me, and here you are in court playing a victim? You walked away, and you've been trying to set me up as the villain ever since." Christine's lawyer was up right away. Objection, argumentative and irrelevant. The judge did not hesitate. "Sustained, Mr. Brown. You'll answer questions via your lawyer, not launch personal attacks in court." But Kody wasn't done. He changed topics, turning to Janelle. "And you, after all the things I've done for your children? For you? You stand here waving bank statements around, like I've been pilfering money from you? You understand full well why I transferred that money. You know." The judge's gavel came down with a crash. Bang, "Mr. Brown." The judge's voice was icy now. "This is not a platform for you to yell down witnesses. If you cannot abide by the rules of this court, I will have you excused from these proceedings. Is that clear?" The air was thick with tension in the room. The gallery hung motionless, not wanting to move. Even the court reporter's fingers had slowed on the keyboard, as though she was waiting for what was to come like everyone else. Kody breathed deeply, attempting to get himself under control. But as Christine's lawyer pressed on with her questioning, restraint disappeared once more. "They're lying," he exclaimed, thumping his hand on the table. "They've been conspiring against me for months, whispering, scheming, making me out to be some sort of monster. This whole thing is a setup." The judge leaned forward, his eyes on Kody. When he spoke, his tone was lower than before, but each word splashed like a stone dropped into water. "Mr. Brown, this court is not sitting to indulge your drama. We are here to deal in facts, not conspiracy. You've had every chance to bring evidence forward on your own behalf, and so far, you've instead resorted to making allegations without evidence. That will not assist your case. What will assist your case is evidence, documentation, and trustworthy testimony, not tantrums." Kody opened his mouth to respond, but the judge held up a hand, cutting him off. "And one more thing," the judge went on. "You might feel that yelling will make your argument stronger, but what it does is demonstrate to this court that you are more concerned with directing the story than with facing the fact. That is not how this process operates. If you cannot manage your anger, you will be taken out, and the process will go on without you." The room was still. You could almost hear the quiet hum of the overhead lights. Kody's lawyer leaned forward once more, hissing in a low whisper. Kody's shoulders dropped just a little, not in defeat but in frustrated awareness that he'd pushed it too far. Nevertheless, the glare he shot halfway across the room at Christine and Janelle said it all. The remainder of his cross-examination was decidedly more subdued. But it was too late. The interruptions had altered the mood in the room, and not in a positive way. Where previously there had been some interest in seeing if he would be able to present a strong defense, now there was a lingering feeling that he'd attested to the very things that were being alleged against him, that he was controlling, unpredictable, and not willing to be contradicted. Christine sat quietly, fingers laced, her eyes rarely crossing Janelle's. Janelle herself maintained her focus on the judge, resisting being goaded by the earlier comments of Kody. Onlookers in the gallery glanced at each other with a look that seemed to say, well, if there was any doubt before, there isn't now. As the day drew to a close, the judge entered one last notation for the record. The court reminds everyone present that this is a legal process, not a personal battlefield. Evidence and law will be the center of attention. Personal complaints and emotional displays will not dictate the decision of this court. Kody's jaw clenched a second time, but he remained quiet. When the bailiff called for recess, the room became a low buzz of murmurs. Some reporters bolted out to phone in their stories. Others remained, observing Kody as he rose deliberately, smoothing down his suit jacket. His expression was a stone mask, but the strain in his shoulders told the truth. This wasn't happening the way he had envisioned. And if the rumblings from the gallery were any guide, most of those observing thought the tide had turned totally against him. The courtroom was silent after the judge's last, ground-shaking decision. For Janelle and Christine Brown, it was a victory they had fantasized about for years. A legal victory, to be sure, but also an emotional and personal one that they had been fighting quietly for over a decade. The gavel had fallen, and with it the heaviness of the past seemed to break into splinters on the cold, shiny floor. Christine looked over at Janelle, and the two shared a glance that said volumes: relief, gratitude, and an understood promise. This is the beginning of something new. The press outside the courthouse burst into questions, cameras popping like flashes of lightning. The world demanded answers. What had occurred behind those four walls? How had Kody Brown, once the dominant patriarch of their infamous polygamous clan, been so convincingly defeated? Christine's voice was steady but strong when she approached the microphones. This wasn't about revenge. It was about defending ourselves and our kids. We demanded fairness, and today we received it. Janelle spoke after her, her own voice just as strong but infused with emotion. We battled for our rights, and for the truth to be revealed. Today justice wasn't just served, it was demanded. Kody's reaction, from shock to rage inside. Kody was quite another matter. His jaw clenched, his eyes scanning the room like a man looking for a way out. In the seconds following the verdict, he seemed numb in denial, as if the judge's decision was some sort of bad joke. But as reporters poured in, shock soon turned to fury. He lashed out at what he called a biased system, and accused Christine and Janelle of orchestrating a public smear campaign against him. This isn't justice, this is a setup. You're all going to see the truth eventually, he barked before storming into a waiting SUV, refusing to answer further questions. But to many observers, his response only validated what the women had been claiming for years, that Kody's failure to step up had been the source of the family's downfall. The judge's words rang out. The judge's final words had been biting, blunt, and unavoidable. He stated clearly that his verdict was not based on opinions or newspaper headlines, but on the facts and testimony entered into evidence. This court acknowledges the grievous emotional and financial damage inflicted on the plaintiffs, the judge said. The law is meant to safeguard individuals who have been dealt with unjustly, and in this instance, the facts clearly favor the plaintiffs' allegations. Those sentences would be repeated across news sites and social media for the next few weeks. The public's reaction social media went ablaze like wildfire. TikTok videos of Christine and Janelle, beaming outside the courthouse, accumulated millions of views within a matter of hours. Twitter, or X as it is now branded, went haywire with hashtags such as #JusticeForChristine, #JanelleWins, Big, and #KodyExposed. Fans who had watched the sister wives drama unfold from the start felt vindicated. Audiences had long suspected that the Brown family dynamic was much more poisoned behind the scenes than Kody ever admitted. Now, with the ruling of the judge, those suspicions had been proven correct in a big public way. A viral post captured it so well. This isn't about Christine and Janelle's victory. It's about a victory for anyone ever silenced or manipulated in a relationship. Today, truth walked free. Christine's next chapter. In the days after the verdict, Christine openly discussed her future plans. She announced that she had already started working on a new book, one that would trace her life from the early years of the Brown family to the day she left that courtroom a winner. I want people to know that leaving isn't the end. It's the start of finding yourself all over again, she explained in an exclusive interview. Her supporters stood by her, texting words of encouragement and pre-ordering the book before it was even complete. For Christine, this was not just a new beginning. It was an opportunity to help others through her story. Janelle's empowerment mission. At the same time, Janelle went in a different direction. She declared she would be hosting a series of webinars about women's financial independence. Having fought through the financial complexities of polygamy for years, Janelle well understood the value of being able to control one's own money. Money is not just about dollars and cents, it's about freedom, she declared to a crowd of applauding women at a women's empowerment conference. And when you have freedom, no one can control you. Her workshops sold out almost instantly, with attendees eager to learn from her experiences and expertise. Kody's fallout. While Christine and Janelle flourished, Kody's world appeared to constrict. There were reports that he was under increasing financial strain, with a number of business endeavors collapsing following the court ruling. Insiders said that his relationships with the other wives were strained, with some expressing doubts over his leadership and judgment. Tabloids endlessly speculated about whether additional legal wars lay ahead. As publicly defiant as ever, Kody was yet to be seen scrambling behind the scenes to repair his image. A symbolic moment. The most compelling moment came 2 weeks later, when Christine and Janelle both appeared together at a charity benefit for single mothers. Hand in hand, they took the stage, smiling not only as friends, but as survivors. "We're here because we believe every woman deserves to rewrite her story," Christine said to the crowd. "You are not defined by your past. You are defined by the choices you make today." The audience was on their feet, clapping, many of them brought to tears. Closing scene for the YouTube story. As the video finishes, the camera sweeps over shots of Christine and Janelle hugging outside the courthouse, the sound of the gavel still ringing in the viewer's ears. A voice-over renders the final spine-tingling line. For years they were instructed to remain silent, to get in line, to embrace the life that was handed to them. But today, they rose up. Today, they fought back. And today, they triumphed. This isn't merely the defeat of Kody Brown's domination, it's the dawn of Christine and Janelle's liberation. Fade out. If you'd like, I can now combine all 5 sections in